Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I'm Rose Ross. I'm one of the co-conspirators at TechBritannia and one of the founders. And I am delighted to be interviewing Rich Yorke, who is the managing director and one of the founding directors of CyNam for the We Are TechBritannia podcast and videocast. So welcome, Rich. Thank you for joining us from Cheltenham.
Hi, Rose. Pleasure to be here. Hi, everybody.
Fantastic. So you had a very busy week last week. You had one of your spearhead events, and probably your annual spearhead event, which is CyNam 21.2. Can you tell me a little bit about it? And also, I'm very intrigued to why is it 21.2? Sounds like a code. We're just issuing 21.2.
Yes, so we have three headline events across the year in March, June, and October. So the code is very simply it's 2021, and this is our second headline event. So 21.1 was in March, and we're looking ahead now to 21.3 in October. And the one we deliver in June, we deliver together with the Cheltenham Science Festival. Pre-COVID, that was actually within one of the marquees on the Cheltenham Science Festival site, but obviously this time it was a virtual event for obvious reasons. But we decided to base the theme around smart cities and securing smart cities, and explored some of the challenges around that, and how together as an industry we can help make sure smart cities are a successful part of the UK going forwards.
Fantastic. So obviously, it'd be good to understand a little bit about CyNam, because it is a cluster focused on cybersecurity, and being based in Cheltenham, the home of the National Cybersecurity Centre, which is part of GCHQ. Obviously, that is very fortuitous. And if we look at the focus for securing national infrastructure, obviously, smart cities and the whole IoT security debate is a big part of that. So what takeaways were there from that perspective about securing, our own, the UK's national infrastructure, would you say?
So I'll say one of the key takeaways was actually less around the technology piece and more about making sure that if you're developing smart city technology or services that are going to be built on that technology, that there's an engagement with the citizens and businesses that will be using that technology, and I guess that's the key design principle of any new system. But that was an important takeaway. From a security perspective, the NCSC actually did a piece on their own guidelines around securing the IoT technology that underpins smart cities, and it's certainly worth checking that out on our YouTube channel for some really specific pointers that should be noted when developing that. And that's also, we had some academia there, so from the University of Bristol, University of Oxford, and Royal Holloway University as well, as I say, focused again on building trust, because ultimately security is around trust. And if you have the right trust frameworks in place, then you can achieve the right things and do so in a secure and reliable manner.
Fantastic. Well, I know that Stephen Covey's son, Stephen M. Covey, I believe, he has something, the speed of trust, about how much can be done if there's actually trust in a relationship. Both, obviously, from a business perspective, we won't look at personal relationships, whole different ball game. So you talked about academia, obviously, you're talking about government with what the NCSC is doing. Tell us a little bit about something, sort of the types of organisations, who are part of the cluster at CyNam? Who are CyNam?
So CyNam, or Cyber Cheltenham as our full name, is made up of we call them a community of organisations, and we've got about 175 active organisations engaging with us regularly, about 3,000 people, individuals involved as well. And they're made up from the kind of full spectrum of cyber tech and cybersecurity companies, from your big sort of primes, so think IBM, BAE, Raytheon, Northrop Grumman, your mid-tier suppliers, Roke and various others, through to a number of exciting and small startups that are starting to go places. We've got Ripjar, who you'll have heard of, who secured double-figure millions of funding last year to grow their technology. The guys from Immersive Labs, so James is part of our community, has contributed to CyNam events in the past, and is really going places. And then we've got startups such as Aquili, who are recently acquired and who have been through the NCSC Accelerator program, and a number of new businesses who are perhaps only 18 months old, but are really gaining traction as a result of the growth in the cyber sector. Often, spinning out from that organisation that you've already mentioned.
Yes, I've name dropped them a number of times. Not doing that again. And obviously you've talked about academia, and that takes us on to the new initiative that was launched just before last week on the 4th of June, the UKC3, which stands for the UK Cybersecurity Collaboration. Is that correct?
Yes, the UK Cyber Cluster Collaboration. And essentially this is an organisation that we've set up with cluster leaders from across the various cybersecurity clusters across the UK, including the devolved areas of Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland. And we've set up as a national body to represent the cluster community and to support and help fund the work of clusters. Because the vast majority of clusters, and until probably 2 years ago, CyNam was like this, very much run on a voluntary basis, and with people organising events in their own time. And what we're realising is the impact that clusters are already having, could be really sort of bootstrapped and accelerated and grown upon with funding, so that they can bring on actual resource that work for clusters full time. So that's what the UKC3 is there to do, is actively support those clusters across the UK to really drive that economic growth within their regions from the cyber sector. And there's 3 areas that the UKC3 are focusing on, which maps quite nicely to what clusters have been focusing on anyway. And the first is around ecosystem development, so really growing that community of organisations that are within the sector, looking to engage with new sectors that are perhaps the organisations that rely on strong cybersecurity services and products. And the second is around innovation. So we've got an innovative economy within the cybersecurity sector, but there's a lot more that we can do, particularly if you want to start to compete on a national scale and bridge the gap with perhaps the US and Israel, who are ahead of us in investment. So looking at activities to really bring together academia and industry and drive that innovation. And then the third stream is skills. It's well documented that we've got an issue with the cyber skills gap in the sector. And so we look at ways that how can we inspire the next generation to take roles in the sector, but also looking at people perhaps retraining from other industries, and how can we develop those skills further.
Fantastic. Well, obviously the NCSC works very closely with the UK Cybersecurity Council as well, which has launched earlier in the year. Yes. And that's very much focused on skills. So I'm sure that you will all be collaborating very closely. So one of the things I think is kind of interesting that you've talked about is you mentioned Israel, and obviously we talked very briefly. You've stolen my thunder. How can I do segues, Richard?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Pinching all my ideas. Gosh, watch out for this one. He's sneaky. So I'll have to go and get one of mine in now. So I think we're looking at the UK getting about 250 million last year in funding, with Israel just topping over at 1 billion. And obviously the US has got they've got a scale that we will have to work very hard to compete with, but they're at around 5 billion. But to nibble at the Israeli heels, so to speak, how do you feel that the clusters can make a difference to that sort of startup and innovation world? I mean, where you're based, Israel benefits obviously from its, almost the osmosis of people who have, do cybersecurity from a defense perspective, from a military perspective. So they're very, very military grade approach to things and very rigorous, and academia there is very focused on cyber too. What do you think you guys can do with that sort of opportunity that this collaboration affords to you and therefore benefits the UK?
Yeah, I think there's a number of things we can do, and clusters play a really important role in driving innovation. And one aspect of that is working with academia within the region to pull through some of the research that's being developed and making that research more accessible to the innovators within their regional ecosystem. And that's not to say, just to be clear to any researchers who are out there, that's not in any way to dub down the work that's being done, but to make it accessible such that innovators can look to develop that into capability and really sort of put on events and join the dots between organizations so that collaboration can happen and research work can be turned into stuff that can really make an impact from a security perspective. And I think the other thing as well, I'm talking sort of about our region in Cheltenham specifically, is actually, we're looking at NCSC now, very sort of public facing part of GCHQ, which is, a big culture shift from where they were 10 years ago, say. And I think a lot more of that is going to help, then there's IP, there's interest there that can be brought out into the commercial sector and capabilities developed off of the back of that. And we've mentioned, companies like Ripjar and Immersive and others where they have had, some of their founding members have had experiences working in government in that area. And I think bringing some of that knowledge and expertise out into the private sector is, it will help bridge that gap.
Definitely. I mean, you talked about Immersive and, the collaboration there. And certainly from our perspective, from TechBritannia, one of the driving sort of one of the motivators really is, I know that Eric, my co-founder, Eric Doyle, was really very passionate about trying to find a way to glue or kind of get that benefit of creating some really powerful links between what is happening with academia and what is happening in the commercial world, and even what's happening in different pockets of academia, where, somebody's working on an IoT project and somebody's working on a cybersecurity project, and they fit together. So, the two parts, only 100 million each investment, but put the two together, we could be, we might just give Israel a run for its money with that type of collaboration. If you take those, potential spin outs. And obviously the US has been really, really, really good at that knowledge transfer as well between academia and the links between that and the commercial world and commercializing those ideas. So I think anything that we can do in the UK from a tech perspective, and obviously cybersecurity, which is one of our really strong offerings from a tech perspective, has to be a really good thing. So what kind of stuff are we going to see in the practical sense from UKC3?
From UKC3, so one of the first things we're going to see is actual practical funding coming from UKC3 into the clusters, which will enable clusters to bring people on board to actually run activities, on a full-time basis. And those types of activities will be events such as we've been running in Cheltenham, where we bring together the startup community with perhaps some of the academic organisations that work in a particular area of research. So there's one, for example, where we're looking to bring in Lizzie Coles-Kemp from Royal Holloway, who's looking at smart cities and trust, and actually what security products and services and innovation do we need around that. And so we'd facilitate a roundtable discussion that would then explore those ideas. And the ideas then form parts of collaboration between those organisations, which can go on to be true capability in the real world.
Yeah.
And another thing that we're doing as well within Cheltenham is working with our local enterprise partnerships, so G1st Let, to offer and enhance the services they offer through their growth hubs to make them really sort of tailored and specific to the cyber industry. So a lot of the cyber spinouts, if you think they're technologists at heart, less good, and I apologize if I'm offending any of them here, they're less good at the sort of the business growth piece and financing and those kind of things. So it's bringing that knowledge and mentoring into those organizations so that they structure their businesses in the right way, structure them for growth, and know where to go to and what times in their growth cycle to go for funding, for example.
Well, there certainly are some great technologists who are very good at commercial, but it's like anything, isn't it, really? You can't be expected, to be jack of all trades and master of none. That's not going to get you groundbreaking cybersecurity code, coming out of that kind of person. You need people who understand the challenges, the problems, have future looking, and then obviously, people in the team who have the ability to code and develop products and such like. And, when you're a relatively small team, to then expect a commercial whiz as well to be in one of those brains, it's a lot to ask of people. So, yeah, but I mean, that's all really, really important. And, we talked about Immersive Labs, and obviously they've just picked up $75 million from the likes of Menlo VCs. So that's a real great success story. So, hopefully we'll get somebody from Immersive on to talk about their journey. But you've had a journey where you've just taken up a full-time role now with CyNam. And obviously, there are lots of initiatives that I'm sure you're getting very, very involved with, including the collaborative stuff that we've just talked about. So perhaps you could talk a little bit about Rich's journey to CyNam.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, very, very happy to talk about myself. So yeah, I mean, I guess my journey. I know we don't have all day, so I won't go right back to the beginning of my career.
You can always edit it all out, Rich, at the end.
Oh, right, okay. Well,
down to 20 seconds. So.
Yeah, so I guess I suppose my journey in the cybersecurity and national security industry started back in sort of 2002, 2003 sort of time when I joined the Cabinet Office. And at the time there was the e-delivery team, which was delivering sort of central services for government. So things like the government gateway, which is still used today for things like self-assessment and, authentication and transaction routing within, citizen to government, business to government. So that was my first sort of foray into, cybersecurity and national security. And worked there for a number of years before joining Atos, where I was a program and project delivery manager, working in, again, the national security sector. Then did that for about 4 or 5 years. And then back end of 2014, with my co-founders, we formed a company which went on to be called Deep3 Software. And we grew that from a nucleus of sort of four of us founders, and over the course of five years grew that to about 70 or so people, turnover in excess of sort of 6 million, and then sold that business to CACI in November 2019, so that we could continue our growth with the backing of a corporate. And that's been, a really exciting journey for me. It's been, fantastic to grow the business, the ups and downs of doing that. Learned a lot along the way. Had a fantastic ride. Really enjoyed it. Did some great things in terms of the capabilities we developed in partnership with other industry partners, other suppliers in the cyber sector and also government as well. It felt like it really made a difference, but it was sort of time for me to sort of move into focusing on CyNam in a dedicated way from April this year, because we could see the growth opportunity within Cheltenham and the region, and I really wanted to put my weight behind that, and help the other businesses in the region who are going on a hopefully a similar journey to me, a successful journey, and see what I can do to help support them and share that growth.
Fantastic. Well, it's great to have someone who's actually done it. Yeah. It's a bit like sort of climb that mountain. Well, I know roughly what to do, right? Yes. But I've never actually climbed a mountain. So I'm going to tell you how to do it, because I've watched lots of YouTube videos and, I went to the shop and I got all the right equipment. But it's great that we've got a real, pioneer there coming to support what's going on there at CyNam. So, we talked about a couple of other things, and obviously Linda Cameron heads up MCSC. Dr. Claudia Natanson heads up the UK Cybersecurity Council, and Poppy Gustafsson is the CEO of Darktrace, which is another great success story for the UK cyber world. So we are starting to see, powerful, influential women, and there are lots of others. That's just 3 examples. Obviously, you mentioned Lizzie Coles-Kemp as being an academic who's really shining with that sort of IoT and trust. So diversity, and we've talked about skills gaps and all of these things, but obviously also people to do the various roles. And there are a whole spectrum of roles within cybersecurity, as in most tech sectors. What can we do, or what can clusters do to nurture that, bringing more people on and therefore encouraging as many people who have something to bring to cybersecurity to consider that as a role, whether that be somebody who's maybe leaving the military, returning to work after starting a family, or doing a different type of role. What can we do as an industry to support those types of people?
Exactly, and I think one of the key things that can be done is I guess first of all is raising the awareness and visibility of the various roles within the sector. Is exactly as you said, they're not just sort of hardcore technical roles. Obviously, there are a lot of those in cybersecurity, but there's lots of others too. So I think that's one thing, is making the industry and changing the perception of it, that it, so it is more accessible to people coming potentially from other industries. I think as well, also showcasing particularly areas where women are doing a great job, making sure that that's really visible. So you've mentioned those leaders. Absolutely, those are role models for people to aspire to and learn from. But then there's also those women already in the sector doing fantastic work at the working level, and highlighting those roles as well, so that people can see actually that is a role that I can do. And that's something that, through the work of my colleague Madeline at CyNam, we've been doing. At the last CyNam event before this one, so the 21.1 event, we had a video. It's around International Women's Day, and we had a video of it must have been about 40 or so women who are working in the sector within the region, just saying what their name was, what their job was. And it's such a diverse range of backgrounds, a diverse range of roles. And we've had lots of engagement with that. And this is helping inspire not just the next generation who are coming through the education system, but as I say, women from other industries to say, actually, this is a sector that I'd like to get involved in.
Definitely. And obviously, gender is just one area where we can look at diversity and neurodiversity, or being neurodivergent. Is important as well, that we need people who look at the world in lots of different ways to look at cybersecurity, because, we don't know who the actors are. We don't know where the threats lie. We don't, whether it's from an ethnicity perspective and other aspects, is that we all have our own personal view of the world. I mean, we can't have people defending and putting solutions or products in place, or processes for that matter, looking at it purely from one angle, one view. So that strengthens us as well, doesn't it?
The diversity of thought comes, the most diverse way to gather thinking, and diverse thinking is to engage and bring in a diverse range of people from all the backgrounds. And cybersecurity touches every aspect of society, of course. I mean, so we need to absolutely address that diversity challenge, and a lot of the work being done through the cyber skills work stream, and with Cyber First and NCSC and DCMS initiatives as well in that area, is focused on inspiring that next generation from all backgrounds. And we absolutely want to engage with the disadvantaged communities, and as I say, make it aware that this is a sector that they can play a key role on, and it's a sector that impacts them as well.
Fantastic. So obviously you've now got an opportunity in our closing moments to maybe shine a little light on some of the people we should be Oh, this is a difficult one. It's not like, who's your favourite child? Because of course there are no favourites. But let's say which ones might come to mind. Perhaps some. Let's make this a bit fairer. Maybe some that are very involved in either 21.2 or 21.3. Oh, actually 21.3. Let's do a quick shout out for what's the plans there, because that's September, not long to go. I'm sure you've got lots of ideas floating about. Are there any that you can tell us about, and perhaps highlight some of the startups that may be getting involved with that?
Yeah, well, yes and no. So we are developing the theme for 21.3, which is, so it's going to be in October.
October, apologise, yeah.
No, date to be confirmed. I think if I spoke to Claire and Eleanor here, who are the driving force behind the events, so we're bringing it forward to September. That
was my fault, ladies. I said that. It wasn't Rich. He put me straight immediately. So no harm, no foul there.
Cool. So October event. So we haven't decided the theme yet. In fact, just before this call was in a workshop with colleagues looking at the various options that we have around themes. So I think in the next 2 weeks we'll have something for you then, and we'll be sure to share that. But in terms of kind of what we're looking at here is we're going to be looking at either technology themes, so potentially quantum is something that we're considering, AI obviously being a key subject that impacts cybersecurity as it does with other tech industries, and then looking at what sectors does that impact, and so that we can weave that together. But it will be very much a similar vein to 21.2 in that we'll look to bring technology businesses, academia, governments, and the startup community, and bring them all together so that we really have that interesting debate and make those connections. And the other exciting thing about October, and I don't want to jinx this by saying it out loud, is it should also be a physical event. And we'll be looking to get a venue of maybe 300 to 400, 500 people if we can get enough interest of people who can and are happy to travel. Because, since we've gone virtual, it's been great. We've engaged with a wider audience, and we've been able to get speakers from a more diverse background, which is what it's all about. However, we've missed that real vital element of a thriving ecosystem, which is collaboration and networking. So we're very much looking forward to that. Now you did ask me to name drop, didn't you? A few.
I was going to push you on that again, so I'm afraid that question has not gone away.
Yes, I know, and I'm not avoiding it. I promise you. So I guess in terms of the businesses that I mentioned, I mean, there's a number, 175, I think, as I mentioned, within the ecosystem that engage to a greater or lesser extent. But one of the things we do in CyNam is engage with all shapes and sizes of businesses, because an ecosystem is made up of the big ones as well as the small ones. And we've had lots of support from some of those big players. So we have CGI, which I must mention because they're our annual sponsor. So full declaration, they do sponsor the work that we do, enable us to put on the events. And so CGI, been very, very active this year. Capita as well have been. We're working with Plexel and Deloitte as two organisations that we work closely with, particularly around the NCSC's innovation partnership. And so
Plexel are part of this NCSC startup initiative, aren't they? That was announced at the event last week.
That's exactly right. Yes. So Plexel are leading that, and then we're part of that team. So we as CyNam are going to be putting on a number of events, particularly around that ecosystem development piece and bringing together those different organisations and academia into the discussion to help shape future challenges that go through that innovation partnership. But I must mention, some of the small businesses. So Wembley Partners is a locally based firm, a cybersecurity firm that have been working with us as well. They've done our Cyber Essentials certification for us and helped us, with our own cybersecurity, because obviously we're a public-facing body, we're a community interest company, and they've done that for us and have done a fantastic job, not just at the point in time of getting us secure and accredited, but actually the ongoing monitoring that's around that. I could list off a lot of companies. I'll be here all day because we've got fortunate to have such a big ecosystem here. But those are just some
players in. You mentioned quantum and AI. Are there any players in that space that are worth just shout out to?
So in the quantum space, it's a big household name, but IBM obviously investing heavily in quantum research, and it'd be great if we can get them to invest in quantum research within the UK, and that's something that we're discussing with them and encouraging that. So that's one area. The other is a company I must mention, Rebellion Defense, so a US firm. Growing very fast, doing some really interesting work in terms of AI, based with a base here in Cheltenham, and are going to be working with us closely over the next 12 months as well.
Cool. Well, I'm sure lots of names to watch, although obviously some of them we're very familiar with.
So some are very familiar, yes, but there's some to watch. I don't know if I've mentioned Aquili, again, a business that have been acquired recently by another UK-based firm. So they've been through the previous version of the NCSC accelerator program. So it's great to see a British company there, grow and exit, but then also, work for another British company to accelerate and further grow their offering, all contributing back to the UK economy. So that's really great to see those journeys happen.
Fantastic. Well, it sounds like you've certainly got a busy schedule for yourself there, Rich, with the initiative that you're involved with. And I'm sure you're getting involved with a lot of the stuff that's happening in Cheltenham from NCSC and the Plexel staff, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm going to let you sign off now so you can get on with the rest of your to-do list for today. But thank you so much for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure. That is Rich Yorke, who is the managing director and one of the founding partners of CyNam, who are the cyber cluster in Cheltenham. Thank you very much, Rich. And I'm Rose Ross. I'm the co-conspirator and co-founder of TechBritannia, and I'm also delighted to be presenter and interviewer for the We Are Tech Britannia podcast. And you can find out more about Tech Britannia at techbritannia.co.uk, or follow us at Tech Britannia on Twitter. You can also find us on LinkedIn. Thank you very much, everyone.
Bye.